Hello everyone, welcome back to Spiritual Essence. And in this video, I would like to discuss the mind. Many people seem to be confused about exactly what the mind is, and a few of you who might be watching might even wonder, what does the mind have to do with spirituality or the spirit or anything like that? They're two separate things, right? I'm inclined to disagree with that assessment, and I'm going to explain why in this video. So, when most people think of the mind, they think the human brain, right? It's often associated with intelligence and comprehension, memory, stuff like that. But I do not consider it so. No. The human brain is merely hardware for the internal software of your body, the mind. Now, a lot of people believe that the brain is extremely powerful. It's a supercomputer. It can hold all kinds of information, and it can record everything in our lives. But no, it is not the brain. The brain is merely the hardware to function the mind. The mind is what does all that. Now, besides physical and spiritual nature, what is the difference between the mind and the brain? The brain is not infinite. The brain has limitations. It is a physical limitation. If it is destroyed, the human body dies. It cannot record anything. It cannot be used for anything. There is no such thing as a brain transplant. And that's because when the brain stops getting oxygen, I believe it's 5 minutes. In 5 minutes, if your brain does not get oxygen, it dies, and it's permanent brain damage. Nothing can be done to correct it. But the mind is part of the spirit. The mind is infinite. It can record everything. It's even recorded our past lives as we live them. And inside are all the skills that we used to know in those past lives. All our old fears, all our old memories, they are all here. And a way to access the mind is through the mind's eye, the third eye, which is located in the center of your forehead. The eyes, they say, are the windows to the soul. The third eye is the doorway. Now, the reason I wanted to talk about the mind so much is because in one of the books I read, which is Demystifying the Out-of-Body... Sorry, I spoke gibberish. Demystifying the Out-of-Body Experience by Luis Minero. He discusses something like parts of the astral body that are important. And one of them is the mental body, which is the mind. The mind is an important part of our spirit as it retains all information and can harness an incredible amount of energy. It's what, if we work with it, can allow us to tap into our psychic abilities, our sixth senses. Or sixth sense, but I say senses because there is more than one psychic ability. So, most people would say I'm nuts or I'm crazy for thinking something like this. And they're probably right. But this is truly what I believe. The mind is a terrible thing to waste. And when I first started magic, I was actually working with my mind and my psychic abilities, and I learned quite a bit. I did study Future Sight, which I had quite a few correct visions. I predicted that a friend of mine who was out of the state would have a car accident. I said, be careful, because you're going to have a car accident. I've seen it in my head. And he told me I was crazy. And about a week later, he had a car accident. He survived, and he wasn't injured. Just the car was totaled. But he was like, he texted me one day and he's like, dude, you were right. And I'm like, what do you mean? And he said, I was in a car accident. I'm like, oh my God, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm okay. But it's just like, he's like, I was thinking about what you said. And I'm like, okay, well, I did experiment a little bit with telepathy, and could have been a coincidence, but I remember a friend of mine was trying at work to get me to guess a number that he was trying to guess, and I did guess it right. However, I was unable to do so at work too much because we were very busy. It was a distracted environment, and I just couldn't tap into my abilities or concentrate at all. So the mind, if we harnessed it enough, there are so many psychic abilities out there that we could tap into. Astral projection is one. And even though I haven't really I haven't done a full disconnect, I still have the ability to willfully disconnect a bit. And I'm going to discuss that in one of my later videos about what I mean. But I tried doing a mini series called The Key of the Mind on my channel. If some of you guys remember that, not too many people watched it, and I honestly feel like that was my fault because it's something very complicated. It's not something that I want to discuss in clips on my phone. I actually want to get my camera out, discuss in detail, maybe draw some examples, because I know some people, hearing things isn't always the best way to learn things. Sometimes seeing it in action or a demonstration, which on my phone is very hard to do. It's just getting my camera out and then uploading it to my computer and then editing the video and then, uploading it. It's a whole hassle. But for those kind of videos, for longer videos, I am going to do that. But in those videos, I discussed how years ago, me and my friend Sam, growing up, he was my childhood best friend, we almost had a telepathic connection. We made our own worlds and our own characters, and we would draw them and write them down, their backstories. We'd actually make them real things. And whenever we would play together, if ever we were like imagining something, it's like we knew what each other was talking about. We didn't even have to really explain. It was truly something. And that's because me and him had a great connection. Well, even though I don't think he has visited his world since we were little kids. He's a grown man now. He's 3 years younger than me, and I'm 26, so. But I have continued visiting my world. I have changed my world through my mind. And when people hear this, they think, how childlike to visit a world that you used to use when you were like 10. That's silly and stupid and useless. How can doing that be of any use spiritual-wise, if anything else? Well, it may sound hard to believe, but when I started practicing astral projection, I read this book that kind of spoke to me, and it explained things in a way that Luis Manero could not. He said it from a parapsychologist point of view, a scientific point of view. While this other book I read, the woman explained it from a witch's point of view, something that I obviously got better than a scientific point of view. And in this world that I created, I have actually downloaded my consciousness into it, where I was able to, it felt like I was walking in real life whenever I was in the world. I would look around and I would see all the things that my mind has created in this world. Like, once I was walking through a forest, and it wasn't just trees that we know around here. There were some pine trees and oak trees, things I was familiar with seeing, but there were also these trees that I had never seen before. They had a bluish kind of bark, and their leaves were like spiritual, like translucent, ethereal leaves. And it was very interesting. And I remember using my spirit to touch the bark, and I could feel how rough the bark was. And I even touched one of the leaves, and it was weird. It was like a soft, wispy, kind of silky kind of feeling. And I tested out all of my senses, like, don't laugh, but in the forest, I pictured an oven appearing with freshly baked chocolate chip cookies in it. And I pulled them out, and with my bare hands, I didn't have an oven mitt, and I could feel the warmth, but it didn't burn me because I didn't allow it to. Because in this world, I can create the laws, I can create the physics, I can create anything I want, and anything that I want to happen can happen. And when I pulled these cookies out, I smelled them, and I could smell pure chocolate chip cookies, like in my physical sense. It was like they were there. And then I tasted them, and I could feel the gooiness of the melted chocolate. You know, have you ever read a book? And in that book, they describe a scene where they're like making a cake, and the character describes how the cake tastes and how it felt, and you kind of taste it yourself. It was kind of like that. It was like I was sharing the experience with the character. But in the character, in the world that I create, I cannot physically go on it. It's in the spirit world. So I have to make an avatar. And no, I don't mean Avatar the Last Airbender, and I don't mean Avatar like the big blue creatures from that movie. No, when I think of Avatar, I think of like a character in a video game. And it's a character that I can customize, I can name, I can control, and do all kinds of things with. I have to traverse the world in a form that does not arouse suspicion with the beings that I have created there, because they have gained enough energy to be actually like sentient, you know. And I also have to traverse the world in a vehicle that works with the world's elements and physics. If I tried to go into my world in the physical world, it's not possible. Same thing how like physical people cannot go through spirit portals because the energies do not align. The energy that makes up our dense bodies is not the same as the spirit portals. So you will go right through it, but you will not go into it. And I know this is a lot to take in. I know that some of you might be confused, and I apologize if you do. I will, at a later date, start making those videos where I explain everything in detail from step one, from the origins of this concept to present day and how I work everything I do. But to be perfectly honest, that's all in the mind, and the mind and the spirit go hand in hand. The spirit world is in tune with the mind, and the mind is in tune with the spirit. So it's all interconnected into one thing. The brain is something that will one day die. It will turn to goop and then dust, and then there will be no remnants of it whatsoever. And it's only useful up to a point. It's only useful to have experiences on this plane. But the mind, that is forever. And we can use it to traverse the different spirit worlds, different dimensions, even different planets maybe, if our energy is good enough. We could even technically use it with our spirit to traverse this world. However, you'd have to have a lot of energy to actually make yourself known to someone. But there have been accounts that I have read about where people have like gone to work in spirit, and then they get home, you know, they wake up and they think they had a dream about work, and then someone calls them, they're like, hey, you're not at work, where are you? You were just here. So there is a lot to unpack in terms of what the mind is, and it's not something that I can all explain in just this one video. But what I wanted to do is at least get the building blocks going for what exactly is my belief on the mind and what it can do, which it can do a lot. It is the true supercomputer of this world. No physical supercomputer can best the mind, because it can store not just information from all over this world. It can do from every world And from years past, it can, if you were someone in a past life who experienced a historical event firsthand that we know little about today, it's locked up in there. If we could just unlock it, imagine the treasures that would fall out. And that's what I have to say on the mind. I will, in time, make a video about how I work with the mind and how I work with my world and how does it work, why does it work, why do I do it, and stuff like that, because I know it's a lot to unpack here. But I just wanted to get things started about what my belief on the mind is. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe. Don't forget to hit the bell button so you don't miss any of my future uploads. And beware of the mind.